All right, welcome back to AlgoHQ. I'm here with Victor and Jim, the co-founders of Starsight Labs. They are building a game using the Algorand blockchain called Aegir Tactics, which is a collectible card game kind of based around Hearthstone, but with inspirations from other games as well. Guys, welcome. Really excited to check out what you're working on today.
Awesome. Thanks. We're glad to be here.
Yeah. Jim, how you doing? Doing great. I think you're on mute.
Yeah,
You're on mute.
you're
Oh, as usual. I'm doing well. I'm doing well, and it's
Wonderful.
good to chat with you again, Ibu.
Yeah, no, I've glad to have you guys here. Jim, I met you at ETH Denver back in March or so. We had a good time there, and I known about your game for a while, seeing the NFTs around. You know, really into the concept here. I'm excited to dive into the gameplay. Is there anything I should know before we jump into that?
Yeah, just a quick overview of what we're going for. So it's a digital collectible card game, and the biggest priority is accessibility. We want to make it easier for people to get into the gameplay, and the way we're doing that is we're creating all the game assets as NFTs, and we're going to integrate a marketplace so that people can pick up the assets that they need specifically and get right into the game. And the other thing that's really unique about the game, as opposed to other card games, is instead of having to collect a large amount of cards, we're streamlining the collection process into legends, which are similar to a hero from Hearthstone, where it's the main character and your deck is designed around it. And so people will only have to pick up one legend and they'll be able to get right into the game.
And those legends are the NFTs that have been released so far. Yeah.
Yeah, we did some pre-sale so far. We released some of the mythic legends, which are meant to be the highest tier of rarity. We wanted to really reward early adopters, and we're going to be doing more sales soon, leading up to the closed beta.
So how many cards or, what does someone get if they own one of those mythic legends, and when the game comes out, what are they entitled to?
So each legend comes with its own deck, and these decks are all balanced against each other. And there will be some customization options to let you make choices and influence your playstyle. But the general idea is that we're going to be able to balance the game uh, better, since we're dealing with a fixed set of deck lists, and they're well themed, they're easy to access, and they make sense against each other.
Jim, how difficult is it to balance these decks against each other? And how many decks do you have?
Yeah, I would say it sounds like a technical problem from my point of view, but it's actually a gameplay design issue, and that's actually what Victor and we actually have another designer as well. Pony is his name, or Victor. I don't know what his
Yeah,
official gamer name is, but you can
yeah.
go in more detail about
His
that.
he's known in the Hearthstone community as Prancing Pony. He's one of the top coaches in Hearthstone. I think
Really?
he's coached like the top four players in like all of the last world championships.
Wow.
He has this huge practice group with pretty much all the top players. There's Glory, Gabby. He knows that everyone in the scene, and he's a really good source of knowledge when it comes to Hearthstone.
Mm-hmm.
And so I work with him on the balancing structure, which is something that tends to go kind of awry in other games, where they usually start with a very well-designed framework, and then they lose sight of it, and the game gets a little silly over the years.
Yeah.
And that's what we've seen in several other card games. So me and him have been working really hard to make sure that we know exactly how to prevent that.
Right. And it seems like, from my experience playing Hearthstone and following kind of the news of new drops and new packs, like you said, as years go by, there's just this constant feeling of pressure on the devs to consistently release new cards. And that just makes balancing the game ever more complex. How does integrating NFT technology into a card game help this, or does it alleviate the pressures of that at all?
I think it actually increases the pressure because
Really?
with NFTs, we're not looking to rotate cards in and out of the game in the same way that they do in Hearthstone. Obviously, we do want to keep things fresh and make changes over the years, but we don't want to introduce a tradable NFT and then suddenly just drop it out of the game,
Mm,
which has kind of been the balancing tactic of a bunch of these games.
mm,
Is when a card's out of control, they just sort of wait for it to rotate out of the meta,
mm.
and we're not looking to do that because we don't think it would be fair to the collectors. This is a very different situation now because in digital card games on Web 2, you don't own any of the cards. It's just a license to be able to use them. And so you can't trade them, you can't sell them. And when they rotate out of the game, it's just like, oh, okay, well, yeah, I didn't even own it in the first place, so
Yeah.
I guess I'll just buy some different cards. But these are going to be assets that are traded on marketplaces. We don't want their value to just plummet one day because they had to be removed from the game.
Yeah, of course not. When it comes to building the marketplace, Jim, like how's that been as an experience? And you're building your own custom marketplace for the game, yeah?
Yeah, we're going to. We're probably going to start with a partnership actually,
Mm-hmm.
and utilize one of the existing marketplaces. And the primary reason for that is, the Algorand ecosystem has built a lot, and they've made a lot of strides in what they offer, especially with like pack delivery systems, and there's no reason why we can't just utilize that for what it is. But our vision is that we really want our ecosystem to be as easy to use as possible for gamers and non-blockchain savvy users.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, we would need to make our own marketplace. So down the line, we're probably going to have our walled garden with its own marketplace that those non-crypto savvy people can kind of like not even know that they're spending crypto, but behind the scenes, it's all crypto. And they're actually using that marketplace to buy majority of their assets.
Yeah.
So
That makes sense. You start with something established because I'm going to guess that most of the players in the beginning few months of the game will be Algorand natives. And then as you guys scale up, you'll have the opportunity to expand your marketplace and the offering there.
exactly. Yeah. We're aiming to focus on the Algorand community first. They're going to be the easiest to onboard. They're going to understand a lot of the, how the wallets work with Algorand and everything like that. And then we're going to slowly incorporate like onboarding measures for new user creation.
Yeah.
Like Wire is an option, Vendable an option. There's a lot of these different platforms that we're looking to potentially partner with for user creation and the wallets that get automatically created for the onboarding experience, ease of use.
Right.
And then after that, there's all these other things that we can do, which make it even easier for these non-blockchain interested people.
Mm.
And it doesn't make it so they can't eventually choose to be interested and take their assets off. We definitely don't want to do that. But it makes it so only the people that care about it, those are the ones that when they care about it, they can flip the switch, take all their assets out, send it to their own wallets, or just use their wallet that they own, maybe in their Ledger device, and have everything on that Ledger device and not have, any custodial or any other platform kind of be in charge of it.
Yeah. So make it easy at first and then give them the option to get more complex and advanced with it if they choose to take that upon themselves.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. And Victor, I'm eager to get into the gameplay. I have one more question for you before that, which is, do you find in the Hearthstone community or in the collectible card game community, especially the digital ones, that there is a yearning for true ownership of the cards? You have things like Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, etc., where you can really own rare cards, not as common or even maybe doable in digital card games. So do you hear that from the community?
I hear that from card gamers. I also hear that from people outside of card gaming. I think it's been a long time in online gaming where people have gotten really accustomed to the monetization, really focusing on paywalls and just visual cosmetics. I think people are really looking for something a bit more interesting to put their money into, because at the end of the day, people care a lot about these games and they do want to
Right.
invest in them.
Yeah,
And I think they deserve more than just pixels and uh, getting to play the character they want.
they do. And yeah, you're totally right. Over the past 15 years, we've become completely accustomed to you could put a massive investment of time into a game, but you're barely guaranteed any monetary return unless you turn a pro or a streamer or something like that. And NFT technology could really break that whole system wide open. Get a whether it's a camo for a gun, a skin for a character, or a card. Um, okay, so if you guys are ready, I'm ready to jump into it, and let's see what we got here.
Absolutely. Let me share
And
my screen.
this is like an alpha build, beta build,
Uh,
pre-alpha.
this is pre-alpha, so
Okay.
this is a demo that we build, and the idea was just to show what the assets look like put together. It doesn't have animations yet. This is a build from about a month or two ago,
Okay.
so there were no animations yet, no sound effects, but it does have the core gameplay, and yeah, let's jump right into it.
Great. Let's go. So the first thing I noticed, the art seems really polished, professional. Where'd you find these artists? Because this already sets the game apart from other blockchain games visually.
Absolutely, yeah. We had to search a little bit for artists, but ultimately I think we really connected well with them. It's a German art studio called the Cross Collective, and we really saw eye to eye with them. They got invested in the project right away, emotionally, and yeah, they've done incredible work, and we're really fortunate to have them.
Yeah. Jim, when it came to the art direction, kind of how did you guys describe your vision of the game and like what you wanted it to look like?
Yeah. So this again was a big part of Victor's vision with this. He really likes the WoW environment and a lot of the like.
That being World of Warcraft, right?
Yeah. And he likes the fantasy slash medieval time period.
Yes. Yes.
So Victor, maybe you want to describe
Oh
that a
yeah,
little bit more.
I think it's actually it's a little more like League of Legends almost.
Mm,
I found it really interesting with what they've done in some of these newer universes where they create what started out or has elements of fantasy, but then they incorporate all these other themes, and you can find pretty much every theme in the
yeah.
League of Legends universe. And so the goal was really to try and create something like all encompassing like that, but really do our own spin on that. And it was the artist felt the same way, and we came up with a theme, and yeah, they did a great job with it.
Yeah, just to snowball on that for a second. I play League of Legends, one of my favorite games, and I've been playing it or, at least monitoring it for, 8 years or something like that since season 3. It's like season 12 now. And it's really insane to see how they've brought that original idea of kind of, like you said, loose fantasy, but also some steampunk, some like high tech, some spiritual, all this, some like East Asian inspired stuff. And then over like 10, 12 years, they've really built it and recreated it and reshaped it to
Yeah.
become its own universe. Now you have like, there's a show, they have an MMO coming out. Kind of insane to see how they've crafted that world, and they have their own art style that they've kind of
Yeah.
established over time as well. So I totally hear what you're saying, where if you can lay that groundwork at first, it'll save you a lot of trouble later on.
Yeah, it's actually interesting. They have a partnership with another German studio that communicates with the one that we're using.
Really?
And so they get a bit of feedback from them about how it is to work with Riot, and they're looking to build up into a studio like that that's got a major franchise.
So are you saying we're going to see an Aegir Tactics show if 5-10 years down the line?
Yeah, give us some time.
right.
We'll get there.
All right. Okay, let's get into it.
All right. So yeah, this is pre-alpha footage.
Great.
All right. So
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's a quick overview of the interface. On the bottom is the character that you're playing. We have selected Hjalmar the Berserker. And so somebody who holds Hjalmar in their wallet, he's the mythic legend Berserker, would have access to this character. And he comes with the full Berserker deck, which is a deck that's themed around units that thrive taking damage and have a unique keyword called Berserk, where they get to survive for an extra attack. And it's very familiar. If you've played Enraged Warrior in Hearthstone, it's a similar concept.
Mm-hmm.
So the gameplay is more similar to Hearthstone than the other games. It follows a similar mana system where each turn you gain additional mana, and you're able to play something out of your hand that costs that much, one or more cards.
Okay.
And then you pass your turn to your opponent. The thing that we've added is this the ability system. And so this pink resource on the other side is a new resource where you gain that each turn, and you're able to spend it on 3 abilities, which are here. And we don't have the pop-ups in this build, but each of these abilities has a unique effect, and they combo well with each other and just really drive the theme of whatever legend you're playing.
Okay.
All right, so I'll get started. I'll drop a character and pass my turn.
Right. So now you're going to play from another screen.
Yep.
Okay. So the Templar build, Gregor, what's his shtick? Like, what's his kind of angle?
His angle is a little more towards the divine shield concept from Hearthstone, being able to make his units immune to damage so that they can make good trades. It's both of these legends are fighters, so it's meant to be like a really tense board battle.
Okay. So you sent that card to directly attack him.
Yeah, so similar to Hearthstone, after the turn after you play a unit, you're able to attack either an enemy unit or the enemy legend.
Okay.
And one thing to keep in mind is this the card that the Crusader put out is a buff, and so he's waiting to put down a unit before he can use that.
Okay. He put out a buff first. Do you have to put out a buff and then put a unit on top of it, or can you do it the other way?
So in the main version, we've actually iterated on that card. It's meant to just be cast directly on a unit. But for the purpose of this build, it functions a little more like a location in Hearthstone, right? In the current build.
Okay.
And unfortunately, mulliganing was not in this build, so the Templar has drawn the most terrible hand I've seen in all of our testing.
What's mulliganing?
Oh, sorry. In Hearthstone, you get the option to replace cards at the start of the game.
Yeah.
And so we don't have that in this build, and unfortunately our opponent has drawn a terrible hand.
No problem. So if there's, on Hjalmar's side, he has four characters out, or 4 cards out. I don't know if they're all 4 characters. Yep. So can Gregor still directly attack Hjalmar, or does he have to attack those characters first?
He can once he plays a unit.
Okay.
Well, one thing I'll just bring up is kind of like the vision of the rarity system and how that's going to play in.
Okay.
So if you look at some of these cards, they all are kind of the same rarity for this, but we're planning to have a variety of different rarities, and they're basically going to be skins for the different cards. And we're also going to have a few different rarity legends as well. So this version of Halmar that you see in the bottom screen, he's not going to be the same version that majority of other players will have, because this is actually the most rare of the rares of that legend type. And each of those different assets that have different rarities, they're going to play a part in our reward system, and how much you how much Aegir rewards you win from participating in a game.
Okay.
So if you have a deck of Halmars that is very, very stacked with the top tier skins, and you have like the most rare Halmar, then you'll be earning potentially the most amount of Aegir.
What do you use the Aegir token for?
So it's going to be in time. It's going to be for governance. In the short term, it's meant to be a reward token that's supported by the game's treasury, and it'll also be usable as an in-game currency.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So you can you will be able to buy the assets with Aegir as well. So it's going to function as this in-game currency. If you play the game a lot and you're good at the game, then you can earn more Aegir and buy more of your assets with Aegir.
Yeah.
So
the treasury, you mentioned the treasury, is that funded by the sales of the NFTs, the legends, or is it funded by transactions or something?
So our plans for the tokenomics are that all revenue is going to flow to the treasury, and it'll be converted to Aegir USDC LP tokens, which the treasury will hold indefinitely. So it's the function is that revenue will support Aegir's liquidity, and it'll allow us to distribute that and in time use governance to develop the ecosystem with it.
Great. Sounds good. Gameplay wise, what's been going on here? So you have
so
5
it's
cards. Yeah, go ahead.
I've been saving up here. Gregor has drawn a very bad hand, but I'm going to use the abilities now. So we have one that deals 1 damage to everything on the board, and we have one that increases the stats of a damaged ally, and we have one that deals damage to a damaged enemy. So we only have 5 LP, and each costs 2. So we'll have to choose 2 of those abilities. I think it's time to go aggressive here. So I'll use the Blade Storm and the War Cry to do as much damage as I can.
Cool. My God, big hits here. Gregor's can barely land a scratch on you.
It's not his day. So one thing is that we're promoting our waitlist right now. So if people want to earn an invite to the closed beta, on our website, on the landing page, there is a sign up for the closed beta.
Okay.
Alternatively, if you collect all the Mythic Legends, you'll also get an invite. But that's only a few people have done that so far.
Yeah, that's not a cheap invite. That's not a cheap invite, to say the least. I mean, but it is probably worth it to collect all these legends, because you will get so much value out of them. You get packs, you might get skins. There was a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah, and they tie into the earning mechanic too. Like Jim said, each legend you have lets you earn from an additional daily win each day. And you'll also be able to collect premium cards for each of their decks, which will increase the earnings from each of those wins.
Very cool. Very, very cool. So that closed beta, when do you think we can see that?
We're planning for Q4.
Q4, okay. Next few months. How many people do you think you're going to let into the closed beta?
He determines.
Yeah, it'll certainly go up over time. We'll likely do the invites in waves. But the best way to get invited is to go to our website and sign up.
Yeah, another thing to mention is, so the first group is going to be the smallest, and they're also going to be the ones that win an NFT designed by Block Runner, who also does Flemish Giants art. So he was kind enough to do a custom mystery NFT to basically be the key that opens up our, the closed beta. So by having that NFT, you'll be able to access the closed beta. And who knows, you can even sell it on the secondary market to someone or trade it. So.
If I use that NFT to get into the closed beta and then sell it to someone else, can they get into?
Well, we're thinking about it. We're trying to figure out if we want to lock it down to a wallet. So once you use it, it's only useful for that wallet. But we haven't decided yet. So that's something to be determined.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And I guess last question is, why did you choose Algorand to build this game on over ETH or any other blockchain? Yeah.
So this was my decision early on, and I convinced Victor. But one of the things that I really like about Algorand is just the foundation of the tech, and the fact that I don't feel bad or have a conscience of, having a terrible impact on the environment or just waste of energy. I have a lot of coworkers that are, in the tech space as well. Yeah. And when the first thing they say when I say, "Oh, I'm doing a game on a blockchain," they're always like, "Oh, Jim, do you know what that does to, the environment?" And I can confidently say, "Oh yeah, well, I do. Ours is carbon negative, but it's neutral. But yes. I think it's in the works of being negative at the moment. So
I think
carbon credits. Yeah. Some people have thoughts about those, but if it's neutral, in my opinion, that's as good as you can get. Yeah. And the carbon credits is a nice little cherry on top.
Yeah. I mean, even besides being carbon negative or neutral, I think the yearly power consumption of Algorand is like a handful of homes. So, that's not much really.
Yeah.
That's how it should be. That's how it has to be in the long run.
And the other reason is it really is the development on top of it is much easier than other chains. And I honestly have never had an issue with blocks being skipped or certain transactions not going through as they're supposed to. And just that, swapping is just a layer one feature is such a nice, it's really nice. The developer experience is probably the strongest thing for me. And that's kind of like what convinced me to easily build on Algorand. And creating an NFT is like, if you want to make an NFT as an ASA, that's like the easiest thing you can do. Yeah. It takes like 1 minute. So that was nice. Another thing I'll mention before I end my rant is if we wanted to do this on Ethereum, we would have needed to raise funds before we actually launched our NFTs. And the reason for that is because the mint cost for Ethereum is actually significant. It's not free. And with Algorand, it's like, less than a cent.
It's so low, it's almost free.
Yeah, it's so we minted about, I want to say, what is it, 15,000 assets,
right?
Yep.
And all that was less than a cent. So it's pretty mind-boggling to think that we were able to bootstrap ourselves with less than a dollar, basically selling these assets.
Yeah.
So that was a big pro for us.
It kind of is unbelievable how much you can do just on the base layer one, like, and for the speed and the affordability of it. I guess, what's your message to people? I hear a lot from developers, like there may not be enough on Algorand, or they might think that Algorand development is tough. You're saying that it's easy. What's your message to devs, kind of, maybe they're watching this video or they come across this video in the future? What are you going to tell them if they want to come into this ecosystem?
Yeah. So it depends what you want to do with it. And I think that's something that everyone should recognize, is that a lot of these chains, they have different use cases in mind. For Algorand, it fit our use case very well. I would say that a lot of the I guess comments I've heard about development being difficult with Algorand is more around the smart contract development.
Yeah.
And luckily for us, we've been able to build a lot of what we need without having to do smart contracts.
Okay.
And the reason I say that that's lucky is because it actually costs a lot of money to get your code audited.
Right.
And that's also a barrier to entry for a lot of projects. And if you look at ETH, most of those projects are just copy and pasted of other projects that have already been audited.
Right.
So a lot of these devs that say, oh, it's harder than ETH, it's just because they're probably copying and pasting someone else's code. You can't get much easier than that.
Yeah.
But I think that Algorand is working on an EVM to AVM, solution where it's kind of like you click a button and it transposes it. So I think that's going to be interesting to see where it goes. I think a lot of the sophisticated use cases for Algorand, though, are going to make that argument for a lot of use cases that Ethereum's easier, obsolete. It's going to be really interesting when we have my mind's slipping.
The governance tooling?
No, the random number, the VRF, the verifiable random function, and there's a lot of really neat things coming out. So I think that's what's it's gonna convince a lot of the top devs to move over to Algorand, because it's easier to build those type of toolings out using these more sophisticated tools versus what people haven't even built out on Ethereum. So
I think the other thing too is that crypto projects are they stay very much inside of crypto communities, and they market inside their blockchain. And so I think what's going to be really interesting is once these projects are starting to hit the mainstream, because there's a lot more out there than just crypto communities.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, when technology like Algorand is really going to shine.
I think you're right about that too. Crypto is small enough right now that the people who are into it are used to it enough that they can brush off things like blocks being overcrowded or high transaction fees and things like that. But for it to really hit mass adoption, every one of those problems needs to be ironed out or thrown away. And I think it's also interesting what you say, Jim, about you don't necessarily need to be coding smart contracts to use a blockchain and to utilize like a blockchain's power. You can make NFTs and then use an off-chain solution or some type of other code format to get your project done. Of course, I'm not a coder, so I'm not really going to be technical about it, but that's what I'm understanding from you. Is that correct?
Yeah. I think if I've met a lot of people that they feel strongly everything should be on the blockchain, and that's fine. But I think that there's a lot that you can do with using Web 2 and blockchain features. Not everything has to be a smart contract. There's a lot of things that can cross domain.
Right.
And we can come up with a lot of interesting solutions for normal day people that way. And I think that, like what Victor said, it's going to, mainstream adoption is not going to be someone that pulls out their ledger to sign something. It's going to be someone not even realizing the tool that they're using is using blockchain beneath it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what, a lot of the people I've spoken with that are building on top of Algorand, that's what they care about. They don't care about the price of Algorand as an asset. They just care about the foundation of the actual tech. And that's what is, that's what's going to dictate the success of, I think, future projects. And Algorand as a whole, I think, is that the foundation is very solid.
Yeah, the tech is definitely, I think, what carries people into the community or attracts people to the community. And it's a great point that I've, from my experience in this community or in crypto, Web3 devs who try to do everything on chain, try to do everything in smart contracts, usually end up having an extremely difficult time of building the product that they really want to build, because they might have to make up, especially on Algorand, they might have to create that smart contract at first from scratch, like the first person to do that. Of course, someone has to be the trailblazer to do that, but it's intelligent to be in a hybrid position between using tools that already exist and now integrating like a more advanced tool that is, the blockchain to host assets like NFTs and digital ownership of things. So I think that's super interesting.
I think you can handle it incrementally too, because the really big thing for card games is creating this immutability of the game assets, because that's something that just isn't in any of these other games. They don't own their cards.
Right.
But down the road, maybe taking the game logic on blockchain, that would be a huge step too, because people are using that for replays, using it for tooling. There's a lot of potential there.
Yeah, I think that it's still really early. We're still in the early stages for blockchain and what we can do, and I think the trailblazers that are really pushing the smart contract development and what they're building is really exciting, especially to see what they can do all on chain. I think that's really neat. And I think that there still is a place, though, and exactly what Victor said, small stepping stones. A lot of this stuff has existed in Web 2 for a while. We can use some of that. And then once it becomes really fleshed out in Web 3, cool, let's swap that out and have it available on the chain as well.
Yeah.
But I'm excited to see where things go. And I think for us, Algorand's a really nice mix where we can still build Web 2 and use a lot of these blockchain features for free without doing too much crazy stuff.
Okay, well, amazing conversation, guys. Really excited for that closed beta. If you're watching this, make sure to sign up for their wait list or buy all the NFTs, the legends, and you can get on it. Should be coming in Q4. Looking forward to more from Starsight Labs, Aegir Tactics. Guys, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
Hey, boo. Keep doing you.